This is part 3 of taiji-faucet application. In this video, I'm going to set up the light router on the portal VM so that we can use light router to do the service lookup for the taiji-faucet service in the cloud, in the Kubernetes cluster. Also, in the future, we're going to deploy the single page application on the light router instance so that the API, the light router serves the static content as well. So let's walk through all the configuration changes, because light router is a Docker image. It's published to Docker Hub for every release. In order to use it, you just need to create a configuration and based on your functional and non-functional requirement. So for the taiji-faucet application, I create a folder in light config test. Now it's in the development branch. So you can find this this folder in light config test, light router, and taiji-faucet. So all the information, all the latest configuration is already there. If you want to walk, I can walk you through with a text editor. So this is my local. It's the same like on the GitHub. You can walk through the configuration. First, you need to create a Docker Compose. So we're going to run the Docker container on the VM. Within the Docker Compose, you specify the image with the latest version. Also, you specify the port number for 8443. Within the container is 8443 as well. And you specify your local config folder mapped to inside the container /config. Since we are specifying this config folder, we'll create a subdirectory under taiji-faucet. Within this subdirectory, it contains all the configuration file we need for this particular router instance. Let's walk through all of them one by one. Since the router is going to be communicating with the Consul cluster as well as the downstream taiji-faucet service, we need to have client.yaml to set up. Notice here the buffer size I set is 32, just trying to ensure the buffer size is enough to communicate with Consul and downstream services. And here I have a trust store load trust store is enabled. Verify host name is true, and the trust store is client trust store. This client trust store contains the certificate to the backend service, the taiji-faucet, as well as the Consul cluster certificate. There is no two-way SSL, so this is a load key store for client is false. At this moment, OAuth is not enabled, so we can ignore this section for the OAuth configuration. Let's take a look at the client trust store, what's inside the client trust store. Let's move in one terminal. So we are in this folder right now. Let's take a look at the client trust store using the Java key tool. Enter the password. Right now the password is a password. You can see we have a store type is JKS, and we have 3 certificates there. One is the Consul CA. So this is the root certificate from for the Consul's certificate, and this is the Consul certificate itself. And here we have server certificate, which is default one right out of the live code gen to communicate with the downstream service. Okay, let's move this away. You can see when I try to access the client trust store, I need a password. The password actually is here. This is the client trust store password. You define in the secret.yaml. Within the secret.yaml, you have server key store password as well. We'll mention that later on. And when you're trying to communicate with Consul, you need to have a Consul token. So this token is authorization token, so that it can give you access to Consul to do the service lookup. Client key store is not in use because we are using only one-way SSL. This is the Consul configuration. Because for the light router, it only need to go to the Consul to do the service discovery. So only this parameter is used. You can see we are using HTTPS and pointing to this URL. We have 3 nodes. We just only point to one node for this particular instance. This is the path prefix service. Within this service, we have mapping from /faucet. This is the path for the API endpoint. So if any access to this /faucet on the router will basically route your traffic to this backend service. IO taiji-faucet 100. Basically, it's a service ID for the downstream service. Primary CRT and secondary CRT is for the JWT verification. For the signature verification is not used at this moment. The router configuration. So we enable HTTP2 and HTTPS for the router, and the max request time is 1000. Rewrite the host header, reuse the X forward to false, and we have connection retries max of 3 times. So this is the generic configuration. In most cases, you probably only need to change HTTP2 and HTTPS if you don't want to enable HTTP2. Secret YAML, we've already walked through this. We have basically server certificate password and the private key password, and the client trust store password, as well as the Consul token here. Server.xml. We disable the HTTP and only enable HTTPS and HTTP2. Because this is static IP address deployment, we don't have any registration. The server key store. The server key store actually using the new certificate I got from Let's Encrypt. There are tutorials talking about how to get the certificate, how to change the certificate to the key store, as well as how to install the certificate. There is a tutorial in the tutorial section. Let's make the font a little bit smaller. So this section, we just wrote a lot of articles, like working with some community members. So you can check it out, like how to get a Let's Encrypt certificate, and how to convert to a CA signed certificate to a server.key store. The server key, the light router server.key store is just follow this tutorial to create it. In the service YAML, this section, this entire section until here, is basically config the injection for the console lookup, and cluster support load balancer as well. And here you can see we are using this pass prefix service. So all those other services, they are common standard services right out of the code generation or the default configuration. And we add this new handler as a middleware handler so that it can translate the pass for prefix to a service ID. Tokens not used at all, because this is for the light router to automatically go to OS light OS server to get a JW token in order to access downstream APIs. Now the downstream API is unsecured, so we don't need this. So we got all the configuration done. We just need to check out this on the target server and start the Docker Compose over there. Let's log on to the target server. So let's log on to this. On this target server, I created a directory called lightconfig test. I've already checked out the latest code, latest configuration. And you can see this is exactly the same like we just walked through. If you want to start the service, you just need to type docker compose up. If you want to go to background, just like -d. The service right now is already up running. You can see that it's here. The light router instance is already up running for 14 hours. I basically started this service yesterday. This service, this light router will basically look up the service in the Kubernetes cluster. So if you want to access the service, you can basically do this from the same host. What we can do is just issue a curl command, curl localhost and you can see we got a response. This particular address 1111, you have this many tokens for this particular currency. So you can see here I'm using -k just trying to avoid the certificate verification because I'm using localhost. This particular router actually is bounding to the domain name called faucet.taiji.io. If you want to access from a public, what you can do is you can do this curl https:/faucet.taiji.io for 8443, and you got the same result. And this time you can see I don't have any -k. That's simply meaning the curl command recognized the certificate I have on the portal server, because the certificate is getting from Let's Encrypt. It's recognized by all the browsers. If we want to run the same thing like on the browser, it should be okay as well. Let's just copy this and put this on the browser. And you can see we get exactly the response back. So the next step, I'm gonna update the light router to create to add a single page application to this router instance, so that we can have a good looking UI to perform all the API access. Thank you. Bye.